Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Un-hackable Vehicle Data Privacy and Connected Car panel. My name is Ed Dawson. I'm the Senior Manager of Automobility and Innovation for Invest Windsor Essex, the sponsor of today's panel. Invest Windsor Essex is a lead economic development agency for the Windsor Essex region. The focus of our organization is to develop and execute strategies to retain, expand, attract, and help new businesses start up in the Windsor Essex region, which is proudly known as Canada's automobility capital. Invest Windsor Essex also leads the Windsor Essex Regional Technology Development Site, which is made possible through the Ontario Centres of Innovation, Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network. The Windsor Essex RTDS specializes in cross-border technology, advanced simulation, virtual reality, and very importantly, automotive cybersecurity, which is the focus of today's panel. After the panel, please come and visit us at booth 418 to learn more about our complimentary services and to get some free Smarties. I would now like to introduce our distinguished panel, starting with our moderator, Colin Dhillon. Colin is the Chief Technical Officer for the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association and the project lead on Project Arrow's Canada, which is Canada's first electric concept prototype vehicle. Colin is one of Canada's leading automotive innovation and design thinking authorities and a globally sought-after voice on the ever-changing future of mobility. Outside of work, Colin is the #1 best-selling author of the book, The Three Houses, A Journey to a Better Life. Next, our first panelist, Dr. Mitra Mirhassani. She is a co-founder and co-director of SHIELD, the Automotive Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at the University of Windsor. Her interests include hardware security, Trojan detection, quantum-safe encryption, and in 2020, she was proudly recognized as one of the top women in cybersecurity by IT World Canada. Our second panelist, Mr. AJ Khan, is the CEO of Vehiqilla Incorporated and the president of Global Syndicate for Mobility Cybersecurity, GSMC, a nonprofit focused on enhancing cyber in all forms of mobility. AJ has over 20 years of experience in governance and has authored the book titled Auto Cyber Governance, which provides a comprehensive approach to ensuring cybersecurity in an automotive organization. And our final panelist is Mr. Frank Abbruzzese. He's the president and CEO of AlphaKOR and has over 35 years of experience in the technology sector and develops strategic, long-term relationship with companies and organizations of all sizes and provides strategic planning services for technological advancement. He is also recognized as the king of networking by many in the Windsor Essex region. I'm now happy to turn it over to Colin to begin this informative session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, and good morning, everyone. As Ed has kind of done the introductions and you know a little bit about the panelists, I know a little bit more about them as I would say, the last 4 or 5 years I've worked closely with a number of them. You're going to get a lot of information. This isn't going to be skimming from the top, when it comes to the vehicle. The session title is The Un-hackable Vehicle, which really, for all of us who are in the cyber segment, kind of have a bit of a smirk on our faces and talk about the concerns around vehicles and cybersecurity. Data privacy, because of the data that vehicles are beginning to generate and then obviously now beginning to share, is a critical concern globally. And so what we're going to try and do is, there are experts in their own fields. We're going to try and go a little bit deeper, ask some kind of questions which kind of hopefully provide information which is going to be critical for all of us. I'm going to start first with you, Frank. What trends or concerns have you uncovered with respect to businesses in the automobility space regarding cybersecurity strategy and data privacy?
Thank you, Colin. So the first major trend that we're seeing is awareness of how important in automobility space cybersecurity strategy is. So we've seen a lot of the hacks out there in other industries. We've seen a few in this space as well. So cybersecurity has become the forefront and a very hot topic. From my perspective, on the business side of it, it's more of the business conversation. Very important to have IT technology obviously involved, but it needs to be part of an organization's business strategy. So any of the stakeholders would be asking, what's your cybersecurity strategy the organization has? So we need to bring it up to the C-level and have that conversation. There's many different aspects of the cybersecurity that you could put in place. And we recommend most organizations will have a great internal team and complement that with an external team as well. Collaborating with partners that are experts in the cybersecurity space would complement your overall strategy. So we recommend to find somebody local, or if you're a global corporation, to work with them in terms of complementing your resources and putting that forefront. Keeping it up to date, obviously, is the most important thing, and that changes on a pretty well an hourly basis of what I've said over my 35 years in the industry. As we know, connected vehicles do on-the-air updates. So these are going to become more popular, more prevalent, more data is going to move. We're going to keep the vehicles, the maintenance, keep things updated. So this is an area that potential exposure to risk. So having a good secure transmission, putting good protocols in place, check and measures, and doing audits on the over-the-air transmission is very important. So a lot of companies are starting to look at this as a trend that we're seeing, and obviously the concern is the risk factor of it. Colin mentioned privacy data. That's increasing. It's going to continue to increase. We're collecting more and more personal data. So if any of that data is breached, you've got identity theft that could be possible. You've got financial breach with credit card information when we subscribe to our online subscriptions in their connected vehicles, et cetera. So those are areas that we want to protect our privacy data. What is our policy like? Where's that data stored? How's it moved around? And transparency, how is that data being used? So I want to make sure we inform everybody how the data is being collected, used, and what's the purpose of it. And blockchain technology is another area that we've seen in the automobility space increasing in terms of having those secure transmissions across the data to secure it, and that's an area that we'll see continue to grow. So in summary, having a really good overall cybersecurity strategy, keeping it up to date, have those audits in place, and building some really good strategic partnerships with your internal and external resources. Thank you, Colin.
Thanks, Frank. And just wrapping that up, so where do you see companies that are in the automobility space, like as far as hiring Cisco's, as far as having a strong cyber governance, like where are we currently at? Are we at the beginning? Are we doing well? Are we well on our way?
I would say from our porthole that we've seen, we're midway there. There's a lot of work to be done. A lot of great work's been done up to date, but again, it's keeping it up to date, continuously updating it, challenge your own team, challenging your staff, third parties. We go out into organizations when third parties just get to walk in and plug into your infrastructure and they're working on the connected vehicle. Where's the security protocol that's in place for those trusted third-party companies and suppliers that we deal with? So we've got some work to do, and that's the good news. I think awareness is highly increased today, so we are working on it.
Great, thank you. And a question for you, HA. What are the challenges that the automotive industry is facing with respect to cybersecurity due to connectivity of the vehicle with different hardware and software components? This is not limited to the components inside the vehicle, but also external infrastructure that includes charging stations, roadside units, other components, or even other vehicles.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone in this room. And one of the challenges which we had 5 years back when we initially started talking about automotive cybersecurity, there was no one talking about it. Today, this room is full, so I really appreciate everyone, and that just shows the level of awareness which is now there. We don't know what we don't know, but it seems now we know that automotive cybersecurity is a challenge. The automotive industry has done a great job over the last, I would say, 3-4 years to recognize that challenge and come up with standards and frameworks around that. So, one of the very well-known standard is ISO 21434, which is the Road Vehicle Cybersecurity Engineering standard. It was published in end of 2021. So, automotive companies are implementing that. What basically that means is all automotive companies need to be ISO 21434 compliant as far as cybersecurity is concerned if they want to have the trust of their clients. But in Europe, for example, we have a mandate from the government, which is called the UN ECWP 29, R155 and 156, which is basically saying that any vehicle being sold in Europe has to be compliant with cybersecurity. It has to have a cybersecurity management system, and also it has to have, as Frank mentioned, a secure software update process. So that is happening right now. They also say it should have real-time cyber monitoring. So for example, all of us drove here, I assume most of us. If your vehicle is hacked right now, how would you know about it? So that's a serious challenge. So real-time cyber monitoring is something which needs to be done. And the other thing which I do want to highlight while we're having this discussion, we think of cybersecurity in terms of IT cybersecurity. So one of the important things, and especially from a fleet owner's perspective, we should start thinking of automotive cybersecurity. Yes, you have to have a holistic strategy at the top. Then you have your IT cybersecurity strategy, but what about your automotive cybersecurity strategy, which is totally missing right now? So that is an area which, from a fleet owner's perspective, and then of course from a EV charging perspective, charge stations, the components around the vehicle, road sensors, are they being looked at from a cyber perspective? Because it's not only one vehicle. Our whole transportation system can have a denial of service attack where our vehicles cannot move on the roads. So I think one of the huge challenges here, which we have not recognized, is what would happen to our transportation system if overall, holistically, we don't look at automotive cybersecurity.
The question was really kind of suggesting V2X as well, right? Which is what we've kind of been talking about for a few years, but it's slowly appearing. If there is communication between your car and the roadside unit or the set of lights or another vehicle, it suddenly starts to play in that realm. Who becomes responsible, though, if there is a hack, if there is a compromised situation? Like, what are the challenges? Are we seeing, AJ, municipalities or infrastructure companies communicating and working with the automotive sector, for example, and OEs?
I think that's a great question. Who is responsible? So imagine you're going in your car and it is being hacked. I would say it's the owner, operator of the vehicle or of the fleet who ultimately carries the risk, the cyber risk, because it could be a health and safety risk, it could be a reputation risk, it could be a monetary loss, contractual obligations are lost. So the risk ultimately is carried by the owner operator. But there are, of course, you have to look at cyber insurance of the vehicle, which is right now not being done. You have to look at which jurisdiction the vehicle is going on. So if I'm going from here to Miami, we are passing through many different jurisdictions. How does that work out if there are 2 different vehicles involved, 10 different vehicles involved, and you mentioned V2I or V2V in this case? Who is responsible for that particular incident? Maybe it could be a sensor on the roadside unit. Maybe it could be another software update which was happening on a vehicle at that time, and the vehicle stopped in the middle of the road, which has happened, as we know. So those are the challenges which we have, and as we move more towards deploying these EVs, we have to look at how to secure them.
Thank you for that. Dr. Mitra, in order to address the cybersecurity challenges mentioned by both Frank and AJ, there is critical support needed from a research and development standpoint and academic institutions. Could you please tell us how industry is collaborating with these departments and making sure we have the right resources and talent to secure the future vehicle?
Well, there is fortunately a lot of interaction these days going between academia and industry. And as a researcher at the university, we usually have to look a little bit ahead. So some of the challenges are not yet exposed or talked about as much. For example, we've been talking about and writing letters, open letters, petitions for a few years now for example, AI. But ChatGPT brought it up to the front and everyone is now worried. So it was in the news today that US Senate and regulations are requested even by the OpenAI CEO. So as we are in academia, that's one of the examples that we always look a little bit much ahead, and whereas industry is trying to solve today's problems. So there is a little bit of mismatch of the needs and interests between what the R&D at the university does and what the challenge is at the industry or the trend, basically. However, there are some very good programs enabling the researchers at the universities to work with industry. These are both at the federal and provincial level to encourage the industry to come over and kind of work, which will also train the people that will work for those industries in future. There are currently a lot of them going on. However, before coming in, I was just rambling about, so I'll just bring that topic again. So, for example, right now, we know in academia that, and everyone is more or less have heard about the quantum computers are coming. And we know that in less than 6 years, we are going to be under attack by an entity with the power of the quantum computers. So we've been talking about this for a few years. Researchers have their dooms clock ticking away. Government has given a lot of incentives for the industry to start doing their R&D, getting ready. The regulations are coming in. OEMs are inserting the clause about the quantum on their contracts. However, at the university side, we're just sitting and waiting for the industry to show up because these grants are basically required. There are, for example, this quantum one is no cash from industry. It's all coming from the federal government, but at the same time, this miscommunication and mismatch of interest between what we are doing and with what industry is concerned is a little bit of kind of leaves to be desired. So I do encourage that look at the research that has been done at different universities and pay attention to what they are doing because they're kind of forecasting what will happen in future. And there are a ton of opportunities. This will also enable the future workforce. As we are moving towards the rise of AI, quantum computers, autonomous vehicle, we see that the previous workforce needs to get trained, to get updated, to learn the new concepts, as well as the new generation, the new talent has to be also updated and ready to tackle this. So I say that, and I do encourage everyone that is in the industry to work closer with their colleges, with their universities, and take advantage of the programs.
Great. Well, some of you may know, I think we all do, there is a shortage of cybersecurity specialists globally.
Yes.
Are your students getting picked up even before they graduate? That seems to be a trend.
Yes. Sometimes I really have a hard time keeping them to do the defense. There are a lot of times they are short of just writing their thesis and going to the defense. All the work and research has been done. However, the catch is that they usually don't stay in Canada, and this is a big threat to the cybersecurity ecosystem from all fronts, automobility or IT in Canada. We train them, we spend budget, time, resources to bring up the talent to be picked up by other countries. Usually south of the border is offering them much, much better incentives. So they're moving away in Canada without talent.
And that's a challenge.
It is.
You mentioned quantum computing, and I know everyone, I'm assuming a lot of people in this room understand what's coming with quantum, but Nino, who's behind this conference, this expo we're at, had the co-founder of Xanadu at one of his previous events this year. And the gentleman was asked to describe, what is and what's the power of quantum. And he basically said, what will take a quantum computer in the next 5 to 7 years, 2 milliseconds to compute, would take a computer from the early 2000s 2 years to compute. So that's what we're about to face. 2 milliseconds versus, all right, let's just say a computer from today, a year. Those are the challenges that we're about to face, hence the global race.
It is.
Everybody's at it. And Canada needs to be a global leader. Look, Jeffrey Hinton is from UFT. We are known as the foundational force for artificial intelligence. The challenge we've faced here in Canada is we're very good at creating the innovation, but somehow it slips away from us.
We don't retain the talent.
We don't.
Unfortunately.
Frank, how could automobility companies implement a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy, and what are some of the best practices or solutions?
So that should be one of those important checkpoints when we're talking about this whole connected vehicle, about your cybersecurity. So again, there's several steps that I'd like to share with you. The first starting step would be a risk assessment. Take a snapshot of where the organization is today, both internally, externally, and all your locations, all your partners that you're working with. So the risk assessment will give you a great snapshot, will give you an asset list, a diagram, talking about the organizational level in terms of connectivity and how things are secured or not so secure. The assessment will give you a nice red, amber, green report, if you will, critical, things that should be done in the short term, and then things that should be done as a housekeeping item moving forward. So number one step would be risk assessment. Secondly is the fun part, developing policies and procedures. So I know a lot of them get developed, but that's critical, right? So everyone needs to know the roadmap. What are we doing? What shouldn't we be doing? How do we handle guests in our facilities? How do we handle when people are hopping on the Wi-Fi? I've worked with organizations where, the policy said the Wi-Fi public password in a boardroom has to change on a daily basis. So again, what are the stakeholders expecting your organization? In case there's a breach, you need to stand up and say, this is what we had in place. If I told you the public password of my IT company changes once every 5 years, probably wouldn't be a very good policy to have place. So we really need to drill down and put together some measures that some are going to be common sense, some are going to be a little bit more stringent. And I know what everybody loves about security, it's layers and it's inconvenient. If it's easy and it's not layers, it's probably not a really good policy. So that's a really good checkpoint for our second step on building a good policy. Training and education. So a lot of organizations are investing time in our team. Education is really important to ensure we're letting everybody know the do's and don'ts and providing updates. Common things that we do in the corporate world is phishing campaigns, and you'd be surprised how many people are still clicking on links and PDFs and invoices and POs. All of us have seen them, we've heard of them, we're buying gift cards. So those are things that we need to continue to do, and we need to educate and bring that up to date and talk about the new ones that are coming up. During COVID, we had a whole bunch of ones that we've seen in breach. So these are things that the automobility space is going to have to face in terms of their organizations and keeping them safe and secure, as well as a connected vehicle. I mentioned inconvenience, multi-layer, so having dual multi-factor authentication, that 6-digit code that you get on your phone. Email hacking is a prevalent thing going on today, and did you know you could get email hacked and not even know it? Companies are changing banking info for their customers are paying other banks that aren't yours. Email came from your CFO. CFO has no idea. We take a look at their rules, and all of a sudden they have a whole bunch of rules to delete, sent bin, delete the deleted bin. So again, from an organization point of view, the first thing to look at is that internal, external, and how's your organization going to handle an email hack, for example. So we want to make sure that we have multiple layers at the firewall, at your access points, at all your devices. We have login for your computers. So then the dual factor is another thing to add for multi-layer security. Would be a good step to have in your strategy. Then once you've got a number of things in place, the next thing to do is a security audit. And again, I'll go back to the conversation that this is a business conversation. Security audit, we usually default to our IT team. The IT team is on your team. So unless you're a large organization where there's a big separation, it's really hard to have your internal IT team do an unbiased audit because, of course, when they audit it, it's going to be a well-robust system. So management has to deal with the political issue of having a third party do a security audit. Even your trusted IT partner, if you have an outside IT partner, hard for them to do your security audit. You still need to go to an independent body and look at some of those large organizations to actually do that. The great thing about a security audit, it gives you a checklist, so your internal and your IT partner can actually go through the checklist, fill the gaps, and then do an audit regularly. So having a security audit, whether it's quarterly, semi-annually, minimum annually for any sized organization, strongly recommended. And collaborating with your external experts. There's experts out there in the cyber space for automobility that you can collaborate with. The key there is staying up to date and knowing about the latest trends and best practices to put in place. So that would be a very comprehensive strategy to put together for cyber.
Thank you, Frank. AJ, cybersecurity, and you kind of touched upon OT cybersecurity. Please help to define the difference between IT and OT and why it's important to the global manufacturing world and probably all sectors.
Right. The important thing to highlight here is that IT, which we are all more familiar with, has very strong cybersecurity policies, technologies, and processes already in place. It is a very well-developed technology area. But when we look at OT cybersecurity, operational technology cybersecurity, these are usually sensors, maybe they are they don't have that much code in them. They don't have strong cybersecurity profiles, basically, at the end of the day. And what has happened over the last 4 or 5 years is that if you are a manufacturing entity, you are actually connecting your OT environment to your IT environment. So people are remotely logging in and running assembly lines. They're running manufacturing units, robotics, all of those things. And that means there are a lot of inherent cybersecurity issues there. A lot of this technology is legacy technology. So if you think about it from a manufacturing perspective, but even if you think outside the manufacturing perspective, there are, if we go to an airport and the baggage carousel, that has OT in it also. So that technology is legacy technology, does not have cybersecurity in it. But I want to take it a little further when we talk about OT. Yes, on the manufacturing side, we have to secure it, but then let's think about it from the vehicle perspective. And again, the roadside units, the EV charging stations, they have OT in it. What about even, I will take look at it from a vehicle, inside the vehicle, if you have a touch screen in it, you could consider that OT if it doesn't have much cybersecurity embedded in it. So these embedded systems, they have strong vulnerabilities, and that means, as Frank mentioned, you have to have layers around it and ensure that cybersecurity is in place for these OT devices, whether they're used in manufacturing or they're used outside manufacturing in our everyday life.
It goes without saying, I represent the APMA, we're the trade association for the parts manufacturers here in Canada. About 4.5 years ago, we started a cybersecurity committee because Mr. AJ Khan came into our offices and, I literally just, let's say I was white as a ghost after speaking to this gentleman for half an hour. And then we did a call out, and Dr. Mitra also, full transparency, these two have both been co-chairs of the committee over the past 4 years. A few years ago, we teamed up with KPMG, and we did a report on cybersecurity, specifically OT. And it was highlighted that the importance of OT cybersecurity was because that's where your secret sauce and your crown jewels are. So if you're a manufacturer, if you're a major manufacturer, you're building parts for an OE, there's a very good chance that the CAD, the IP, is actually in the plant versus in the offices. And so that's one of the key reasons of why OT is so important. And AJ was one of the first, and I think you mentioned it in your book as well, to really shed a lot of light on OT cybersecurity. Dr. Mitra, with all the challenges and considerations surrounding the automotive security topic, I think it's important to talk about the new cybersecurity initiative coming out of Invest Windsor Essex. Big shout out to Ed and team, and what you guys have started together with regards to the University of Windsor and SHIELD in the Windsor region to support Ontario-based small and medium-sized enterprises. What do you want to accomplish through SHIELD and your team?
Thank you. So I'll just explain a little bit more. So we actually have been supported through OWIN program, as Windsor is one of the cybersecurity RTDS sites. With the help from the Invest Windsor SX and at SHIELD, we can basically run full pen testing and fuzzing on any hardware that is required free of charge. For the SMEs, there is no cost involved. It's all covered already by the provincial government. So this is, again, one of the things that we encourage everyone. People who design the new systems, they should be kind of know that your systems don't need to be manufactured to get hacked. They could have been hacked while you were still in the design room. The supply chain is super complicated. The manufacturing is super complicated. So your vehicle, your EV charger could have been hacked. Ideas, lines of codes, extra hardware, extra software could have been inserted without you even knowing it. So what we are offering is that we are trying to put this, sooner or later, all of us are going to get hit by this more attention from mostly European and US governments to have cybersecurity assessment on our parts and products. So what Windsor SX and SHIELD can do is that we can run all of these tests, as I mentioned, free of charge for any software or hardware, basically. And we are hoping that by this, we can still remain competitive. So when the time comes to go to the OEMs, to the major players, we can have this, or the industry in Ontario, in Canada, they can have these certificates, they can show this, the whole results, the security checkup. We can also do consultation, as well as sometimes, depending on the timing, can offer ways to remove the security features that we just discovered. This is all just because, as you all know, it's super competitive, and we are getting crushed by Europeans' requests and demands on cyber. So to remain competitive, to keep the jobs in Canada, to retain the young talent that we trained in Canada and Ontario, especially because it's my home, we are hoping that SHIELD, with the help of IWE, Invest Windsor Essex, through the support of provincial and federal government, to get to that goal. Sorry, I'm super excited about this initiative.
Well, it's groundwork, as you're saying. The challenge is the competition, the global competition, to make sure we are able to keep. Look, we're ranked, I think, 4th in the world on cybersecurity, Canada as a nation. So we're up there. We're playing in the big leagues, but why can't we be number 1 and number 2, right?
Yes, and I'm feeling that we might fall behind or lower than that. We always feel safe in Canada. That's our problem. We feel that, okay, we're friendly, everyone will like us. Yeah. We're not that big enough, we are not the target. But things are getting serious. Even a war can happen on the other side of the world, and we get hacked here on our side. So this is happening. It's serious, it's real. And the good thing, again, as I mentioned, and I keep mentioning for the 3rd time, it's free. SHIELD has the expertise, the young talent, and we are ready to help our industry partners to get a full assessment, pen testing and fuzzing on their systems.
Great. Keeping an eye on the clock, we've got about 11 minutes to go. I definitely want to leave some time for questions from the audience, but I've got 2 general questions. Please feel free to shout out. This is one of my favorites. Today's vehicles are an assembly of over 20,000 components. More and more intelligent parts are finding their way onto vehicles, knowing that they come from hundreds of suppliers. So the OEM has to assemble all of these coming from completely different supply base. How do global OEMs manage to piece together connect communication of all the software and hardware, hoping to prevent cyber attacks from occurring, or hoping to have cleansed any parts that are coming in? I open that question up to the panel.
It's just a hope, maybe just a wish. I mean, they are doing what they're doing, but we haven't discovered what we don't know yet or haven't assumed yet. We every day discover, oh, there is an opening here, oh, there is this, there is that. And again, as I mentioned, the complexity of this whole manufacturing and supply chain is what makes it much, much more vulnerable than a cloud system or the IT network, because we really don't know where the parts are coming, who wrote the code. A lot of times, the concept of Trojan is very serious because we really don't know who hacked us a lot of times, while it happened when we were just designing stuff, just the insertion of an extra component or a few lines. So imagine that putting all of that together, I say OEMs are having their work cut out for them.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that. So it's not only the OEM's responsibility as consumers, as fleet owners. When we purchase a vehicle, we should ask what is the cybersecurity of that vehicle. We should ask what are the components on that vehicle, what is the software on that vehicle, like we do on our computers. So for example, Frank had talked about asset inventory. What are the apps on your vehicle? And are there any third-party apps? You might even want to have that. And what is their cybersecurity assessment? So I think the onus is on us as consumers to go and ask these questions when we go and purchase a vehicle, and we make sure that, yes, that vehicle is cyber secure, but also we know what is on that vehicle. Are we using any software which can have malicious code in it on the vehicle itself? So I think that part is still missing from the conversation.
I agree.
I was just going to add, how do you develop an international compliancy standard for best practices to deal with it? Is that something that's too tall of an order to put together?
Well, it's so scattered, right? When you have hundreds of suppliers, how are you, like, look, I spent 20 years in the supply chain, and we always love blaming the OEs. But on cybersecurity, I disagree with that. I think the onus is on the supply chain. It's tier 1, tier 2, but a strategy that starts from maybe the OE, because the supply chain typically doesn't do anything unless the OE asks you to. But it's still a gap. You know, today, hundreds of millions lines of code. Today, hundreds of ECUs on every vehicle. There are issues at hand. My last question before I open it up to the audience. I see all of you have crystal balls in front of you. How do you see the industry moving, and where do you see the industry moving to in the next 5 years? I'll start with you, Frank.
The good news is going to get worse. That's the good news.
Thank you.
Hackers are getting more clever and sophisticated, and it's going to be tougher to get the gaps. So we're already seeing it. Anyone applied for cyber insurance in the last couple of years have seen dramatic changes than we've seen 3+ years ago.
You're not getting any payouts now.
No payouts, and you have to check a lot more boxes today. So I think that we have, when I said that meeting, we have a lot of work to do to get to where we need to be in the next 5 years. But if all of us are aware and proactively working on it, I have confidence in 5 years that we're going to have a lot secure, robust, connected vehicles.
AJ, if I could prod you to answer that, but also under the SAE ISO 21434, look, it just got brought in a year or so ago. Where do you think things are going to be with that being played out? Does it need to be updated? Where do you see it with regards to 21434/OT?
So I think to answer your question, we have started on the journey. But the journey is really, it's never ending, basically. I've been in IT cybersecurity for 20+ years. We still have breaches. We still have those cybersecurity issues. But the thing is to make it more challenging for the hackers. And as Frank mentioned, there are more and more hackers targeting automotive. So how do you do that? With ISO 21434, it has come out. That means privacy by design, security by design. So the vehicles are being designed in a manner that they are secure. That means governance processes are coming in. That means that us as consumers are becoming more aware. So I am very hopeful. I think that now that we are aware of the challenge, we are actually looking at that challenge and we are trying to resolve it. It will never be 100%. Cybersecurity can never guarantee 100% security. But at the end of the day, I think we will be in a good position because everyone is cognizant of that fact. And from various jurisdictions, from the industry, from the consumers, there are strong advocates looking at cybersecurity of the vehicle.
So cybersecurity is the gift that keeps giving by the sounds of it. So if I want to get into a business, I should be looking at cybersecurity.
That's one way of looking at it.
Dr. Mitra, 5 years from now, where do you see things?
I'm a little bit worried. So in terms of, as a researcher, I'm happy that it's an interesting time for us to discover. At the same time, I'm a little bit worried when it comes to how it impacts the social life. So again, going back to this issue of ChatGPT and OpenAI, AI is not a new concept. It's been there, it's been talked about. Regulations, needs for it's been demanded by researchers, people who've been in the field, and we are a little bit slow in uptake to protect the innocent, protect the vulnerable parts of the society. It's been used in a lot of jurisdictions, in a lot of critical, basically, decision-making bodies of government, the AI. And it's yet now we are starting to realize. So my worry is that we are not moving as fast when the time comes for protecting the society from the impacts, negative impacts that it might have. So I'm hoping that before 5 years, within the next year or two, we start really putting in place the regulations and safety features on some of the manufacturing process, on quantum computations, and also on AI before long.
Great. We have about 3 minutes to go. There is a mic in the middle of the walkway there. If there are questions from the audience, if you could just raise your hand and come to the mic. Don't be shy.
We didn't scare them enough.
Well, as somebody has confidence, please.
Too tall for me. All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful panel. Great discussion. Thank you very much. It was entertaining and informative. One thing I thought that I couldn't hear from you guys was the issue of forensic analysis. It is true that a non-directed attack is always going to be a thing. There's going to be always a vulnerability. Every connected vehicle to the internet will be scanned and picked on. Directed attack or targeted attack is also a thing. And do you guys see that as an issue? And are we there yet to design vehicles that could preserve some data for forensic analysis? If there was an accident, are the manufacturers, the OEM part manufacturers, and all the third-party companies providing cybersecurity solutions, are they even thinking about preserving some of these data, summarizing some of these data to enable forensic post-accident, post-incident forensic analysis? And is this a discussion that we should have today, or it's just too soon for now?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I can take that because this is what my company does, Vehiqilla. We do instant response for vehicles. So it's not one thing as such, but it's the cyber monitoring of your vehicle. It's also looking at instant response plans and, of course, the forensics at the end of it. Frankly, right now, vehicles are not being monitored in real time. That is the challenge. So if you don't know what is happening, you can't say that there was a hack. And then once the hack has happened, only then you can go and do forensics. So yes, that is a very important conversation to be had. But I think at the moment it's not being had. The conversation is not there, and that's the discussion which needs to be. Because now, as these vehicles come on our roads, these kind of challenges will happen, and forensics becomes a very important and critical component, not only from a technical perspective, but from a legal, from a policy perspective also.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the question. Look, we're at the end of our time. A big thank you to the EV and Charging Expo team for allowing us to have this stage. A big thank you to Invest Windsor Essex for supporting this conversation. Frank, AJ, Dr. Mitra.
Yeah, I just have a small announcement. If any of you want to come over to the Invest Windsor Essex booth and get a complimentary copy of my book, please feel free.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
That's the booth
Listen, it was
418.
Sorry.
418.
418. So get a free copy of AJ's book. Great read.
and the Smarties.
Look, the takeaway is there are challenges. You have a brain trust here, and there was a concern at the end when looking into that crystal ball, which means there's a lot of work for us to do, but let's collectively see how we can try and accomplish that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.